May 8, 1945, Europe exhales its final breath of war. Yet in a windswept field outside the shattered bones of Darmstadt, Germany, 38 women still wear the faded grey uniforms of the Wehrmacht, like ghosts refusing to vanish into peace. They are the last, the forgotten daughters of the Luftnachrichtendienst, the signal corps girls who whispered coordinates through crackling radios, connected desperate voices across telephone lines, and read the green glow of radar screens until the very last second ticked away. 18 to 29 years old. Some had marched forward with idealistic hearts. Others were pulled from their mothers' kitchens by conscription notices that offered no choice. Now they are all the same, prisoners, waiting in terrified silence for whatever justice the victors choose. They sit in crooked rows on the hard earth, knees pulled tight to hollow chests, encircled by American GIs whose rifles catch the afternoon sun. Their faces are drawn and pale as winter. Their hair, shorn short beneath caps stripped bare of all insignia, frames eyes too old for their years. They haven't eaten properly since February, 4 months of slow starvation. The last official ration arrived 3 days ago, a tin cup of watery soup that tasted like despair, and a slice of bread mixed with sawdust that scraped down their throats like punishment itself. They know the stories whispered in cellars and bread lines. They expect shouting fists the hot sting of revenge. So they wait quietly, obediently, because silence is what German women were taught, the first lesson and the last. Their hearts beat like captured birds. But the Americans aren't shouting. A young lieutenant steps forward from the armed circle. His name is Daniel O'Connell, 24 years old, with a baby face and a Texas drawl thick and slow as molasses poured on a Sunday morning back home. He has seen too much in the past month. The camps, the walking skeletons, the liberation that came too late for thousands. But he has also watched his own men kneel in French village squares, pressing chocolate bars into the trembling hands of starving children who'd forgotten sweetness existed. He studies the women before him. Some are barely older than his kid sister back in San Antonio, the one who writes him letters about school dances and complained about rationing butter. He sees their jutting collarbones, their shaking hands, their terrified dignity. And in that moment he decides. He turns sharply to his sergeant, his voice clear and certain. "Bring the kitchen truck up." The order falls like a stone into still water. Around him, soldiers exchange glances, confusion, understanding, relief. 10 minutes later, 2 field kitchens rumble forward, trailing miracles. The smell arrives before the trucks even stop. Real coffee, dark and bitter and alive. Frying spam sizzling in its own fat. Powdered eggs scrambling in hot butter. Biscuits baking golden brown. The aroma rolls across the field like an impossible dream made solid. The women smell it, and their minds refuse to believe. Mouths water painfully after months of drought. Stomachs clench with sudden savage hope. Some begin to cry without making a sound, tears cutting clean tracks through the dust on their cheeks, afraid that breathing too loud might break the spell. Lieutenant O'Connell walks slowly down the rows, clipboard in hand, speaking through an interpreter whose voice shakes with the strangeness of it all. "Is anyone wounded, sick?" A few trembling hands rise like white flags. He marks each name carefully, tenderly, as if they matter. Then he does something no one expects, something that will echo through decades. He fills a mess tin high, scrambled eggs piled like yellow clouds, 2 biscuits soaked in butter that pools golden, a thick slice of spam, and a generous spoonful of peach jam that catches the light like amber. He walks to the first woman in the front row. Her name is Erika Müller, 19 years old, from Hamburg. She stares at the tin as if it's a hallucination, as if blinking might make it vanish. She has never seen so much food in one place, not even before the war stole everything beautiful. The lieutenant smiles. Not with pity, not with triumph, but with simple human warmth. He speaks in careful, practiced German. "Essen bitte," eat, please. 2 words that crack something open inside her chest. Her hands shake so violently the mess tin rattles like distant thunder. She takes one small bite of the eggs. Her eyes close as if in prayer. Tears slide down cheeks still dusted with airfield soot and yesterday's fear. She whispers something that breaks the interpreter's voice when he translates it. "This is the best food I've ever tasted in my entire life." The lieutenant doesn't need the translation to understand. He sees it written in her face, in the way she cradles the tin like a newborn. He nods once, gently, then moves to the next woman, and the next, and the next. A procession of mercy, one meal at a time. Within minutes, every woman holds a full mess tin, warm and heavy in trembling hands that forgot what abundance felt like. Some eat slowly, afraid that any moment soldiers will snatch it away, that cruelty is only pausing to catch its breath before returning with force. Others eat too fast, choking on tears and biscuits, their bodies unable to remember how to do both at once. A few don't eat at all. They press the hot tin against their chests and rock gently, eyes closed, as if the warmth itself is nourishment enough, as if they're trying to remember what safety feels like. Private Ruth Becker, 21 from Munich, hasn't tasted real butter since 1942, 3 years of margarine and lard and nothing at all. She spreads it thick on her biscuit with shaking fingers, licks the knife clean like a child, then crumbles completely, sobbing so hard she can barely swallow. Corporal Elsa Kleiner, 27, a mother of 2 boys she hasn't seen in 2 endless years, sips real coffee with canned milk and sugar. She closes her eyes and mouths the same word over and over like a sacred prayer, like a lifeline thrown across an ocean. Danke. Danke, danke. The American soldiers watch in heavy silence. Many have sisters back home, wives waiting by mailboxes, sweethearts whose photographs live in breast pockets close to their hearts. Some have daughters. They see those faces now in these enemy women, and the lines blur into something uncomfortable and true. One GI, barely 20 himself, slips a Hershey bar to the girl beside him when he thinks no one's watching. Another lights a lucky strike with trembling hands and passes it down the row. Soon the air fills with cigarette smoke curling upward like prayers, and the sounds of women chewing, crying, breathing. The field transforms. It no longer feels like a place of surrender, of victors and vanquished standing on opposite sides of history. Instead, it becomes something fragile and achingly human, a pocket of grace carved out of the wreckage of war, where enemies remember they were people first. Lieutenant O'Connell sits down on the ground with them, folding his long legs beneath him. Through the interpreter, he asks gentle questions. Where are you from? What did you do in the war? Do you have families waiting? The answers come haltingly at first, then tumble out like confessions. They are terrified of being judged, of saying the wrong thing, of revealing too much or too little. But the lieutenant only nods, his blue eyes kind, and tells them about his little sister back in San Antonio, who's learning to drive a tractor and keeps running over the mailbox. The women laugh, small broken sounds like glass trying to remember it was once sand on a beach, warmed by sun. But they're real laughs, the first in months, maybe years. The sound startles them, as if they'd forgotten their own voices could make something besides fear. Night falls soft and purple over the field, bringing stars they haven't looked at in so long. Instead of transport trucks rumbling toward interrogation camps and uncertainty, blankets are handed out, real wool blankets that smell of mothballs and America and impossible safety. The women clutch them like treasures. They're told they'll sleep in a barn tonight, with fresh straw and a roof that doesn't leak. Before they're led away, each woman receives a small paper bag. Inside, 2 Hershey bars, a pack of Lucky Strikes, a tin of Spam, and something else, something that will matter more than all the rest combined. A handwritten note, carefully translated into German by someone who looked up every word twice to get it right. The paper is crisp and white, so clean it seems to glow in the fading light. The women unfold it with reverent fingers, afraid to tear something so precious, so unexpected. The note reads, "You were doing your duty. We were doing ours. The war is over. Welcome to the human race again. At the bottom, a signature in confident script. 87th Infantry Division, United States Army. Simple words that crack open the future and let light pour through. Many of the women will keep that note for the rest of their lives, long after the paper yellows and the creases deepen. Some will fold it carefully into family Bibles, pressed between psalms and prayers. Others will hide it in bedroom drawers beneath silk scarves and old photographs. One will frame it on her kitchen wall, hanging it where morning sun can touch it. Proof that mercy once arrived wearing a uniform, that kindness once spoke with a foreign accent, that the world didn't end even when it felt like it should have. Erika Müller will frame hers in dark wood with gold trim. In 1949, she'll marry an American soldier named James, who makes her laugh and never asks about the war unless she wants to tell him. They'll move to Wisconsin, where winter reminds her of Hamburg, but without the sirens. Every Christmas for 50 years, she'll bake biscuits with too much butter, golden, flaky, dripping with excess. Her grandchildren will gather in her warm kitchen, and she'll tell them about the day the enemy fed her, about a lieutenant from Texas who chose mercy when he could have chosen anything else. Ruth Becker will open a small bakery in Bremen in 1952, on a cobblestone street that somehow survived the bombs. The first thing she perfects, after months of trial and error, is American-style biscuits. She names her shop Danke 1945, though few customers ever understand why that year matters so deeply. But sometimes elderly women will walk in, see the name, and begin to cry. They'll embrace Ruth without explanation, and she'll give them biscuits still warm from the oven, and they'll sit together in comfortable silence, the kind of silence that only shared history can create. Elsa Kleiner will find her 2 sons alive in a displaced persons camp 3 months later. Karl is 8 now, and little Heinrich is 6, both thinner than she remembers, both with eyes that have seen too much. The first real meal she cooks for them is scrambled eggs with Spam. They eat 3 helpings each, shoveling food into their mouths with desperate speed, and ask through full cheeks why their mother is crying into her apron. She doesn't have words to explain that joy and grief can taste exactly the same, that gratitude can break you open just as surely as loss. In 1978, 33 years after that dusty field changed everything, 21 of the original 38 women gather in Darmstadt again. Some have traveled from America, some from across Germany. They bring children, grandchildren, and a few American husbands who hold their hands tightly. They're older now, silver-haired, slower moving, wearing comfortable shoes and reading glasses. But when they stand together in that field, now covered in wildflowers and new grass, they're 19 again, 21 again, 27 again, hungry again, afraid again, saved again. They lay a wreath of white roses where the kitchen trucks once stood, where steam rose like hope into the May sky. The flowers are tied with both American and German ribbons, woven together in a pattern that took 3 women an hour to get right, because symbolism matters. One by one they read aloud the note they all still carry, some in wallets, some in purses, some folded so many times the paper threatens to fall apart along the creases. Their voices tremble like leaves in wind, but they don't break. They've survived too much to break now. Their children and grandchildren listen with wide eyes, hearing for the first time the full story their mothers and grandmothers have carried quietly all these years. Some things are too big for dinner-table conversations. Some things need sacred ground and wildflowers and the right moment. Some moments never fade. The women understand now, because some moments are larger than victory or defeat, bigger than borders or flags or the side of history you happen to stand on. Some moments are simply the first time someone looks at you and sees a human being instead of an enemy. On that day in May 1945, 38 German women learned that peace doesn't always begin with treaties signed in grand rooms by men in important suits. Sometimes peace begins in a dusty field with scrambled eggs, buttered biscuits, and a young lieutenant who chose mercy when hatred would have been easier. For the rest of their lives, through marriages and births, Through rebuilding and reinvention, through the long work of becoming themselves again, the women will remember that food had no uniform. Hunger didn't care who won the war, and kindness didn't ask which side they served. It simply arrived when it was least expected, least deserved, most needed. Whenever they taste real butter melting on warm bread, or smell coffee brewing dark and strong in the morning, they're carried back to that field, to the steam rising from mess tins, to hands that didn't strike but offered. To mercies spoken softly in a foreign accent that somehow sounded like home. They remember a young lieutenant from Texas who had seen too much death and chose not to add to it. A man who understood that ending a war sometimes means refusing to continue it in your own heart.